Hi, welcome back. I'm Dave. We're in E major and we're talking CAGED today. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. We've got a 3-chord progression on that backing track. We're not going to turn it on here at first. We're just going to go through these shapes. And here's what we're doing. Each of the 5 shapes in the CAGED system. Okay, a lot of you are familiar with that to varying degrees. I'm not going to name things like a bunch of letters and then say, well, it's this shape, but when you put it here, it's this and that and the other. And that's just, you can do all that in your head, and it may be a lot less confusing than just having somebody sitting and saying all these kind of contradictory things of labels, right? I just think of them as shapes. So, you do want to memorize this, however you go about it. And you want to be able, even though you're not going to play, it's like, well, E, A, D, or, if I'm playing cocaine or something, I'm not going to play all these things. I'm just going to go, that's right. But in the big picture, you want to have all of this stuff in your knowledge and in your muscle memory, just because it allows you to play even like pentatonically and blues style and stuff, rock style, in all these different positions, okay, and be more efficient with that. So that's kind of my sales pitch for why to spend time on this. And it's also just, it's fun because you get to see kind of the construction of like the neck and how things really add up and how they overlap and things. So a lot of there's tons of stuff out there about CAGED. This is a really straightforward demonstration of how you can practice this in one key. So we got 3 chords. All right, E, D, A, and then I go back to E. Then in each one of these positions on the neck, we play those same 3 chords, right? The first one is like we just did, right? The very familiar shapes. Now I move up to, and you can do this by kind of tracing the root of, the chord as being like a certain type of inversion or something. You don't have to kind of track all of that really. You could just follow this video and others that are more pragmatic and just go to the next way that you can make a simple E triad, is going up the neck would be something like this. Okay, so here you've got an E, B, and another E, but it's like a power chord. It's like root, 5th root. You put that G sharp down there in the bottom, you've got a major 3rd in it now, right? So you've got a full. Okay, and then for this exercise, we want to try to find the other 2 chords, the D and the A. They're all major triads, right around in this hand position. So where's a D? Well, there's an open one there, we know, but there's one right here So no right or wrong reason for selecting that one, except that we just want to make sure that we're identifying and practicing as many as possible. So here's the D. We got from E to D. Now we need an A. Okay, so it's like this one, but we come down. Right, we get a little bit different voicing there, because in this one you don't get a third down here, down low. So this one sounds nice. Sounds different. Another reason to learn a bunch of them, right, is that they all have a different texture or sound. So now we've got E, D, A, E, and we just repeat that progression. The next position is make sense? And we're just going to go up the neck like that, okay? The next one, and there's so many different fingerings and different things you could do. It's not that these are the only ones. But this is just a neat, concise way of using, alternating these shapes. And you'll see as you go up that, one of the chords becomes one of the previous shapes that it was for another one, because it's the root. It's wherever it's rooted. Okay. Not a whole lot to analyze there. Like, don't get hung up on all that, right? This is just something you can just memorize and practice it. Maybe I should practice more. I don't know. Okay, so next one. Now we got an E right here. You still got an E open 6th string down here. Okay, I'm not used to. Usually I'd probably just pick that like right from the 5th fret or whatever, right? Now we want a D and an A. Well, here's the D, the pretty familiar one, and of course that A. Okay, so just going in E shapes or different shapes of the chord E going up the neck, we've got. Okay, and then we're putting the D and the A in there in each position. Then E, D, we could just move it down, like cocaine and a million other things or whatever. And we will do that when we're just jamming on a song. But, see if you can challenge yourself. So what can I do that's like right here? Right? It's a little piece of that, but you can do it all right there and get that different flavor because of that third in there. So then we need an A. Okay, I see people get hung up on this one more, right? That has that major third in the lowest position, in the lowest voicing. Okay, so those three go. Okay, next one. Same business we just said about the E. We're just taking it from there to the D rather. When we apply that to E, we end up with that, but we can finish that off down there. Okay, and then we want a D. Well, there's one that jumps out at you pretty quick, and then an A. Sorry, my hand gets in the way of that. But all there's those the shapes are repetitive, right? But when you move them around, of course, they have different roots, and so it's a different routine for the 3 chords in each one of the neck positions. Now, the second little part of the demo there, I just pretty much like separated the notes, right? My mom called that broken chords when she taught me piano. Like, she would just read the chords in the songbook above the lyrics, and she knew how to make each chord a major and a minor, kind of like what we're doing. If she did it by shapes, right? She didn't read like all the notation. She could read notation, but if she just wanted to play a pop song out of a book that you would buy back in the 70s, she would just look at the chords written over the top, just like what we do with cowboy chords on guitar or whatever. And then she was like, yeah, you can play them like this, or you can play them as broken chords, right? We call those arpeggios, right? But, the broken chord thing was just like a way to kind of spice it up or something. So one of the first things we could do is just put that backing track on and do whatever makes sense for you. But we could pick some of the notes out. Oh, let me try that one again. Okay, that may seem really simple, but that's important because it just gives you like it's a bridge between like just playing everything together, striking it all together, and like walking it, right? And when you walk it like that, you're playing melodies, right? So, they're all chord tones. So you kind of have a really almost a guaranteed batting average with playing a note that makes sense, right, over that chord. But you also just get little phrases just sort of automatically doing that, right? And then the last thing that I'll leave you with on this, so that's quite a bit of work for a lot of folks, um, and some fun, hopefully. Uh, just going through what we just did, right? And then you start applying that to other keys and things or whatever. It's good to work out in one key till you're really familiar with it, and the rest of it kind of falls in place easier after that. Is some of the other stuff that you're familiar with. Well, we would do like what scale would go good over this progression, and without going through a bunch of theory, let's just say what they are: E major or minor pentatonic. Certainly E major pentatonic, and the E mixolydian, which would be like the do re mi scale with the 7th flatted. If you're not up to speed on everything that I just said right there, do not worry about it. But if that makes sense, the E major pentatonic, then you can do a little connecting after a while. And, then you get that lateral movement going, where the scale kind of moves you around, but you still want to be able, the challenge and the fun part of it would be to, like, wherever you are, kind of like musical chairs, just kind of like, stop the beat. It's like, okay, I'm right here. Can I just stay right here and play those 3 chords? And if you take your time, it's really fun. This simple three chord thing becomes something that's like where you're literally playing like the entire instrument, right? Doing that. And don't do it all with the backing track, right? Don't try to don't just try to keep up with the back and stay in time and all of that. Do a lot of it off to the side and just wander around, and figure it out in your own way. And that's the stuff that you really soak up. That's what really stays with you. The stuff that you figured out yourself, right? Um, and then I just did a little bit of, you know, uh, some, started to do a little bit of soloing there at the end of that intro. Um, but mainly I was still kind of thinking like in the shapes, right? It wasn't like that wasn't really a lot of free form stuff like I would be doing if I just cut loose with the blues scale and all of that. I was really just still in like exercise mode, right? But just moving around, putting a few bends in and stuff. So you got this. Just, take it slow and do it however it makes sense to you. Appreciate y'all. Let me know how this goes for you. Talk to you next time.